Bruchim haboim. Welcome everyone. We're about to begin Be'ezras Hashem together on Daf Mem Gimel Amud Beis, 3 lines from the top. Ula continues to darshan the psukim of Para Aduma. It states, Vihiza hator al hatome, and he shall sprinkle the one who is tor onto the one who is tome. Tor michlal shehu tame. The fact that it emphasizes that he is tor comes to imply that he has some sort of degree of tumah. Limed al tvul yoim shekosher bepara, to teach me that the one who is tvul yoim, even though he still needs herev shemesh to be completely tahor, he still has a degree of tuma, whereby if he would touch and come in contact with kachim or with truma, he would metamit. But he's still considered to be, since he was tvul yoim, he was already tevel in the mikvah, that he can go ahead mimazeh, he can go ahead and do the para aduma. Rabasi said, Ki havu ba Rabbi Yochanan and Rabbi Yishlakish bepara. When Rabbi Yochanan and Rabbi Yishlakish came to analyze the psukim of Para Aduma, loy maski mino, they did not find it to be uniform. In other words, they came to the same conclusion as Ula, that some psukim are indeed coming to imply differently than the previous implications, whereas other psukim do maintain the implication of the conditions from before. Rather, like the one who is like the fox who is treading on the plowed field. What comes out is just some dust on the fox's feet. Elo amre, rather they said, mashma moitzi miyad mashma umashma meila. Just as Ula had explained to us that these psukim, the parsha Pra Aduma, again, are not conditions that are always uniform. Some imply differently than previous implications, while others imply the same implication as before. Tani Tana Kamei Rabbi Yochanan. We have a brayso that was taught before Rabbi Yochanan. Kol hashchitois ksherois bizar chutz mishel para. All of the shchitois, when it comes to kachim, are going to be kosher even by a non-kohen, with the exception of Para Aduma. Para Aduma will be poisil if he shoichet, the zar shoichet, the Para Aduma. Omar le Rabbi Yochanan. Rabbi Yochanan said to him, the one who was teaching this brayso, Puk tnei livra. Go out and teach this brayso on the outside, not here in the base medrash, because it's not a valid brayso that one can rely on. Lo matzinu shchita bezar psula. We don't find the shchita by a zar even in Para Aduma to be possible. In other words, Rabbi Yochanan goes like the shita of Shmuel that we saw before, who argues on Rav, and Shmuel's shita is that also that the zar could yes be sheichet the Para Aduma. That's how Rabbi Yochanan learns. Rabbi Yochanan lo mi boy letana de lotzayis. Rabbi Yochanan not only does he not agree, does not listen and agree with the Tana that was just quoted. He says that Tana, that brayso was meshubash. Elo afilu l'rabei lotzayis. He even did not heed to his own Rebbe. Dom Rabbi Yochanan mishum Rabbi Shimon ben Yehud Tzadok. Rabbi Yochanan said in the name of his Rebbe, Rabbi Shimon ben Yehud Tzadok, Shchitas para bezar psula. The shchita of the Para Aduma performed by a zar is poisel. But Rabbi Yochanan goes on to say, "Va'ani oimer kisherim," but I say that it's kosher, because lo matzinu shchita shepsula bezar. We don't find that any shchita, including the Para Aduma, would be posel when it's done by a zar non-kohen. Now we had seen indeed on the previous daf on daf mem beis amud beis, that the Gemara had brought a brayso supporting Rav that was a tiyuvta on Shmuel, indicating that indeed a zar that is shoichet the Para Aduma is poisel, not like Rabbi Yochanan's shita over here. The Gemara quotes the Mishnah, Baloi Eitzel Paroi Shniya. The Kohen Gadol now he comes to his to his ox a second time and makes vidui. Maishna bevidui rishoin deloy omar ubnei Aaron am kedoyshecha, umaishna bevidui sheni de omar ubnei Aaron am kedoyshecha. What's the difference? In the first time when he approaches his ox, he makes a confession for he and his household. The second time he then approaches his ox. He then not only confesses for he and his household, but he also confesses for all of the Kohanim. What's the difference? Why does he not do that on the first time of the confession? Tan de Rabbi Shmuel was taught in the Beis HaMedrash of Rabbi Shmuel, Kach himidas hadin noisenes. This is the correct way of performing. Mutav yavoy zakai v'chaper al chayiv, v'al yavoy chayiv v'chaper al chayiv. It's best, it's correct for the zakai to come and mechaper on the chayiv, then the one who's chayiv to mechaper on the chayiv. So therefore, once the kohen himself, the kohen gadol himself, confesses his sins on the first time, he becomes zakai because of the charota, the confession that he does. Then it's appropriate for him to confess the sins of his fellow kohanim once he's already zakai. That's why he does so in this order. The next Mishnah, the concluding Mishnah in the parak, says as follows: Shochtoi v'kibo mizrach es domoi v'noisnei lemishahu mimares boy ala roivet haravi shebehechal kedei shelo yikrosh. Here it states that after now the kohen gadol shechs his par, he doesn't immediately take the blood of that par, of that ox, and sprinkle it, but rather he gives it to a kohen who mixes it so it doesn't become then coagulated, and the dam is mixed and placed on the fourth, what's called the fourth row, that is shebehechal. The Gemara explains not dafke in the heichal, because that can't be placed in the heichal when the avodah in the Kodesh Kadashim is performed. So it must be talking about outside of the heichal. The Gemara will explain. Notal machto va'olo l'rosh hamizbeach. The next thing the Kohen Gadol does, he takes a pan and he goes to the top of the mizbeach, the outer mizbeach. Upona gecholim elach ve'elach. He then pushes the gecholim, the coals, to each side, so he goes able to get from the beneath the hottest of coals. V'choise min hamukeles hapnimiyos. Then he takes those coals on his machta. V'yorad, he goes down from the mizbeach. V'hinicho ala roivid arivi sheba azora. Then he places it on the fourth roivid, the fourth row in the azara, just as we said, where the placement of the kohen who was now mixing the dam from the par. B'chol yoim haya. Now the Mishnah tells us the differences between, once we mention the avodah over here of the kohen gadol when it comes to the ketares. Now the Mishnah mentions several differences between the avodah, the ketares on Yom Kippurim versus the avodah, the ketares during the rest of the year. During the rest of the year, there's an avodah, the ketares, both morning and the afternoon. It's a mana which is pras, half of the mana, the amount, the weight of 50 zuz in the morning and 50 in the erev, that is burnt on the mizbeach haketaris, on the inner mizbeach. Says the Mishnah, B'chol yoim haya chayse b'shel kesef umar b'toy shel zohov. Every day he would then take the coals onto the machta that was silver, and he would pour it into the golden machta. He didn't want to then tarnish, to ruin the golden machta. V'hayom chayse b'shel zohov bo haya machnis. On Yom Kippurim, however, he would use the very same machta that was gold from the beginning. This is in order to then save additional efforts on behalf of the Kohen Gadol. Since he's fasting, he's doing the entire avodah, we don't want him to become weakened. Every day he takes the machta, which is enough to take the amount of 4 kavin, and then he pours it into the machta for 3 kavin, which we only need the amount of 3 kavin for. Today on Yom Kippurim, he begins with the machta that can only then contain 3 kavin, and that's the one that he uses. He doesn't pour into another one again to save him efforts not to machlish the Kohen Gadol, who has to do the avodah the entire day. Rabbi Yossi oimer bekol yom chayse b'shel so umare b'toy shloisha kavin. V'ayom chayse b'shloishes kavin ubo haya machnis. Rabbi Yossi says the amount is different. He says Every day it's b'shel sa, and he's mare b'toich shloisha kavin. However, today he uses a machta of 3, and that's what he uses. Haisa keveda. Every day you use a machta that has walls that are thick, which makes it the machta heavy. V'hayom kala. Today on Yom Kippurim, it's light, it has thin walls. Again, in order to then save additional exertion on behalf of the Kohen Gadol. Because Yom Haisa Yada Kitsara V'Yom Aruka. Every day the machta has just a handle. On Yom Kippurim, it's a long handle that doesn't just not just to be held by his hand, but it actually allows him to put it against his entire arm to then make it so it's lighter and easier to carry. Again, to help the exertion, to lessen the exertion of the Kohen Gadol. B'chol yoim haya zahava yaroik v'ayom Edom. Div Rabbi Menachem. It says during the rest of the year, the machta that he uses to pour into is of gold of yaroik, whereas the on Yom Kippur it's a different type of gold of Adom, of red, which is a more expensive type of gold. Those are the words of Rabbi Menachem. Bekol yoim makri pras b'shachli pras b'minah b'nar boyim. Every day he's makriv a pras, a half of a mana in the morning and half a mana b'nar boyim in the inner mizbeach. V'ayoim moisiv molochayfnav. Today he adds, in addition to that, molochayfnav for the avodah in the Kodesh HaKadoshim, which he does only on Yom Kippurim. Bekol yom haisa daka v'ayom daka mina daka. Every day, then the Machdeshes makes it so it's dak, the Ketares. But on Yom Kippurim, they put it even more, to make it even more dak, a second time. So it's even more refined, the Ketares. And that's referring to the Ketares that's used in the Kodesh HaKadoshim. Bekol yom kayhanim oilim b'mizrachai shal kevesh v'yodim b'ma'arovoi. Every day when the Kohen goes up, he goes up on the right side of the kevesh, on the east side, and he goes down on the left side, on the mariv, on the west side of the mizbeach. Hayoim Kohen Gadol oila be'emtza v'yored be'emtza. On Yom Kippurim, the Kohen Gadol, he goes up and down the kevesh right in the middle. Rabbi Yehuda oimer la'olam Kohen Gadol oila be'emtza v'yored be'emtza. B'kol yoim Kohen Gadol. Rabbi Yehuda's Chaylik says even the rest of the year, the Kohen Gadol, because of his chashivus, also goes up and down the kevesh in the middle. By the way, the reason why the Kohen would go on the right side of the kevesh, which we said is the mizrach, and come down in the mariv, because that's the principle of kol pinois. When we do the avodah, then you do everything turning to the right. And since he's facing tzafon, towards tzafon, when he's about to enter the kevesh and go up the ramp, so therefore he would have to then go towards the east to be fulfilling kol pinois when he gets to the top. So then again, he'd have to go kol pinos would be to the west when he comes down. B'kol yom kohen gadol mekadesh yodav v'ragla min hakiyar. Every day the kohen, he sanctifies his hands and his feet from the kiyar. V'hayoim min hakiton shel zov. Today on Yom Kippurim, he uses a special basin, a kli made out of zohov, a jug out of zohov. Rabbi Yehuda Omer lo olam kohen gadol mekadesh yodav v'ragla min hakiton shel zov. Rabbi Yehuda said that's true all year long. Bechol yoim hayu shom arba marochos v'ayom chamesh. Every day there are 4 marochos, 4 different pyres on the outer mizbeach. Each one had a different purpose. Hayoim chamesh. However, today on Yom Kippurim there are 5. Then an additional pyre. Divrei Rabbi Meir, Rabbi Yosi Omer b'kol yom sholosh v'ayom arba. Rabbi Yosi says every day there is 3, but on Yom Kippur there's an additional one, a 4th. Rabbi Yehuda Omer b'kol yom shtayim v'ayom sholosh. Every day there was 2, on Yom Kippur there's 3. But everybody agrees that on Yom Kippur there's an additional pyre, different marocha, because the additional marocha was used for the special avodah for the ketares, that to be then taking the coals to be then brought for the Kodesh HaKadoshim to burn the ketares once a year on Yom HaKippurim.